President, please be seated. The court is now back in session, and now the chamber is hearing the testimony of 2 TCW 971. Good morning, Mr. Witness. Are you ready? Witness, yes, I'm ready, Mr. President. President, Counsel Mormity, are you there? Answer, I am here and I am ready, President. And now the chamber gives the floor to the defense team for Mr. Nguyen to put questions to the witness. You may now proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, Mr. Witness. I will be continuing my...
Witness, good morning.
I will be continuing my questions from where we left off last week. Just to remind you, when I asked my questions last week, you testified about your observations once you had arrived in the northwest zone in Battambang on the 1st of January 1978. You told the chamber that you had observed that people did not have enough food, although there was plenty of rice in storage. You also said last week that you and others from the southwest zone distributed the rice and that people were very happy with that. I have a few follow-up questions, Mr. Witness. You talk about the storage of rice that you observed. Where was this storage of rice, this warehouse? Was it in Tomakul?
Si je peux en profiter, Maître Copé, il serait peut-être bien que nous donniez les références.
May I avail myself of this opportunity to ask you, Mr. Copé, to give us a reference and to identify the place, because sometimes when we read the transcripts, we have problems understanding the identities involved and the place you are referring to.
Yes, certainly. It's the draft transcript of 9 December 2016. At 10:14 and a bit further, he talks about the rice storage in Tmakul. He says, it was at Tmakul because I saw the rice in the storage. He a bit further, 10:16, said that the people were happy when the rice was given to them, that people did not have sufficient food, he said, at 10:10 in the morning, and at 10:11 he said, I did not understand why they left it or why the rice was not given to the people. These are the 4 excerpts from the transcript of last week. Of course, also in his WRI, he says the same thing, but in different words.
President, good morning, Mr. Witness. Witness, good morning, Mr. President. The internet is always cut, so when can we conclude your testimony? Witness, I really want to conclude it very soon, Mr. President. And Copper, you may now proceed, said the President.
Mr. Witness, I believe we all want the same. Good morning again. I don't think you heard me, so let me repeat what I said. Last week you testified about events after you had arrived in Battambang on the 1st of January 1978. You talked about your observations that people did not have enough food, although there was rice in storage, and that you subsequently distributed the rice you found, and that people were happy that you did. Let me ask you a follow-up question. The storage of rice that you discovered, the warehouse that you discovered, you said that was in Temakul. Can you describe that warehouse in Temakul where you discovered this rice?
Witness, let me clarify it once again, Mr. Counsel. The statement that people were starved, that statement was made by Tamok. I and Ajay were reassigned to Battambang to check and verify the situation, whether people were starved and had no rice to eat. I was invited and instructed to go there promptly. Tamok ordered Ajay and me to go and see whether that was the case. That statement was made by him. Upon my arrival, Tamok ordered Ajay to assign me to go to check at Don Teo. When I arrived at Don Teo to see if people were detained and were served, I went to a cooperative, and people there cooked rice, and they ate collectively. They appeared not to be starved. They had enough food to eat. I, at the time, advised them that 1 can of rice should be given to each person, and that a ration should not be decreased. Regarding the mobile units, people were mobilized in order to put in mobile units. They were not detained. In fact, they were mobilized and placed in mobile units to be in charge of different work sites. In fact, they were not starved, but they could not eat their fill since because of the difficulty of transportation of food. And I, at the time, advised that the people who were placed in mobilized units should be allowed to return to their homes. That instruction was received by me from Tajai.
Well, let me follow up on this. At 10:11 last week, you said that you didn't understand why they left the rice in storage and why it was not given to the people. But you said, but from what I saw, I thought that the rice had been stored there for a long time, so the quality became bad. And then you said, and as I said, in some areas the people did not have sufficient food to eat. Oh. No translation, Mr. President?
President, again, good morning. Mr. Witness, yes, good morning. President, we try once again so that we can conclude very soon. Copper, you may now resume your questioning, and please repeat your question.
Yes, Mr. Witness, following up the issue of the starving people in the Northwest Zone, you said that it was Tamok who said that, but you also said last week that you did not understand why they left the rice in the storage, why it was not given to the people, and that once it was distributed to the people, they were very happy. Is that correct?
That is the case at Morocco. They were two different cases.
Well, that was actually one of my questions, because you speak about several areas. You speak about Tamakul, you speak about Ville 3, and you also speak about Duntiv. So let's start talking about Tamakul first, and let's talk about the storage of rice, the warehouse with rice in it that you saw. Can you describe exactly where in Tamakul this warehouse which was full of rice, was situated?
Tmokul warehouse was rice located at the old Tmokul market. It was rice within the Tmokul.
And can you describe that warehouse? How big was it? How much rice did you find stored in the warehouse in Tmokul?
I did not measure how large the warehouse was, and I did not count the amount of rice within that warehouse.
I understand, but can you give an indication, or is that very difficult? The indication as to how much rice you saw stored in that warehouse.
I cannot say about that. The warehouse stored jars of brown sugar and rice. I saw some amount of the stuff.
Can you tell us, if you remember, in which sector of the northwest zone Tmokul was situated?
Council, upon my arrival at that location, it was in Sector 3.
And we also briefly now spoke about Dun Tiv. Which sector of the northwest zone was that? I'm not a technical person, but would it make a difference if we just heard the audio and switched off the video? That could usually assist in transferring data quicker.
So I would support that. Obviously, there's much more data necessary for video. There's an advantage to see the witness, but in this case, I think it's preferable to get the audio rather than nothing.
In case this is an option, does everybody agree? Because obviously you don't have a visual then. Is there any objection to that, in case it's technically possible? No. For the record, no objections.
President, since there is a request from the party and no other parties objected to the request, Roger, now please arrange with the AV, and also we can only hear the sound. We do not need the video. Is that possible? President, the technicians mentioned already that it's not possible to hear only sound, but technicians need to connect both the video and sound together. If not, that's not possible. President, now we try one more time. This is the last time for the connection, and if it still causes the problem, we may find other means to proceed the hearing of testimony of this witness. Counsel, you may now resume your questioning.
Mr. Witness, we were speaking about storage of rice that you found in a warehouse in Tamakul. You couldn't tell the quantity, but are you in a position to say whether the rice that you saw was husked rice or non-husked rice?
But
in the warehouse, there was no unhusked rice, but there was rice, canned fish, and cloth.
In terms of geography, you said Tamakul is in Sector 3. Have you heard of another place called Tamapuk?
Tamapuk. Tamapuk was not close to Tamakul.
but mìnhច្បាស់ទេ
I am not clear with your question.
Let me rephrase my question. Do you know whether similar warehouses full with rice were discovered in other areas in the northwest zone, areas such or places such as Battambang or Tamapuk?
បាទខ្ញុំអត់ដឹងឃើញ
I have never seen those warehouses.
That's fine, Mr. Witness. In your WRI, answer 4, you said that upon discovering the problems with food and to quote-unquote lighten the workload for the people who were starving, unquote, you said that they had me resolve the problem of food. My question is, did you and the other Southwest Zone cadres finally manage to resolve the problem?
បាទលោកធាវី
I went to solve the problem at Tomoko warehouse. I invited villagers and people in the mobile units to get the rice. The warehouse was used to store rice, and rice was for people to eat.
I understand the resolving of this immediate problem upon your arrival, but were you able to resolve the rice or food problem in that area on a more structural basis? Did people, after you distributed that rice, get enough rice to eat?
Due to the short time I was there, and as I said, I opened the warehouse and I distributed the rice to the nearby villagers. And not long after, I was transferred elsewhere. So that was the one occasion that I did it, because no longer I was not in control in that area.
I understand. My following question is, how did you and your fellow cadres found out that rice was being stored in the Tmakul warehouse? How were you able to locate that warehouse? Because you, of course, were not familiar with Tmakul. How were you able to detect this rice, this warehouse full of rice?
When I arrived, there were people who were working in the warehouse. They were part of a female unit, and those women told me about it. So after I inspected the warehouse, I saw the rice, and then I distributed the rice, including those which was in bad quality, to the nearby villagers.
And these women who warned you about this rice being stored, were they also from the southwest zone?
They were the women who had arrived before my arrival, and they came from Sarambal, or the salt field.
Do you know any of them?
We separated our way, so I did not know, and probably some of them went through the refugee camps, and probably some died.
Now, upon discovery, or rather upon warning by these southwest zone female cadres about the warehouse, were you able to find out who it was that ordered to keep this rice in the warehouse and not to distribute it to the people? Do you know who had been responsible for doing that?
No, I did not ask about that. And when I arrived, I saw those people there, so I organized the rice as what I said. And that's what I was instructed by the Chai, even for the rice with bad quality, that the rice shall also be distributed.
Last week we briefly spoke about what could have been possibly the reasons for storing rice and not giving it to the people. Ms. Withers, let me read to you something from a weekly report of another sector, the sector that you were not in, Sector 5. Mr. President, that is document E3/178, English ERN 00342 708, Khmer 0027 5587, and French 006 23304. And this is what that weekly report dated the 21st of May 1977 says, by searching and finding the enemy's trick that rice was hidden in Phnom Srok, rice and salt were hidden like in Priya Net Priya district, rice was hidden in Tma Pok district, rice was hidden in Sisophon district. End of quote. Mr. Witness, although these are all places that you were not working in, did you maybe hear at meetings or other occasions that rice had been hidden in other places in the Northwest Zone as well?
No, I did not hear that. And as I said, I was there for a short period of time only, so I was not aware of this issue. And I did not hear about rice being hidden elsewhere, as what you just said.
Did you ever hear of rice being taken out of the Northwest Zone into Thailand?
No, I was not aware of that. As I said, I went there last.
Final question. Did you ever hear during meetings who might have been ultimately responsible for storing all those rice at various places? A person called Hum.
No, the name did not sound familiar. As I said, I was the last one who came to the area, and I did not know that.
Fine, Mr. Witness. Now let me move on from the situation of food to the situation of working conditions in the Northwest Zone in respect of various places. What is it that you can tell us about what you found about working conditions of people in the Northwest Zone?
I do not understand your question.
Well, let me read to you what you said in your interview, your WRI, question and answer 63. You said, and I quote, "This was the reason that we had been sent to see who had overworked the people without adequate food." And in question and answer 4, you said you were sent to, quote unquote, lighten the workload for the people. And in question and answer 65, you said, when I arrived, I let the men and women in the mobile unit and children go back to their homes. In other words, you arrived. What did you do to lighten the working conditions of the people?
At the time, the food stored in the warehouse had to all be distributed. And second, as for the children unit and the mobile units, I sought opinion from the judge, and the judge instruction was for them to return to their respective homes. And as I said, I was there for a short period of time, so I declared that everyone should return to their home.
And which people did you send home? You said people who had been overworked and had inadequate food. Which people were they?
How could I remember everyone? There were so many people.
I understand, but were they mobile unit workers? Where were they from? Who were the people that you sent home?
The people that I sent home were those who worked in mobile units and in the children unit at the small school.
Now let me follow up with this and read to you what you said in that same answer in question 63. You said the reason that you were sent was to deal with the overworked people who had inadequate food, and then you say, quote unquote, we were to eliminate all of those acts, but the Vietnamese arrived when we had not done that yet. End of quote. What did you mean when you said we were to eliminate all of those acts?
I meant that when I was there, I stopped people from overworked and that they had sufficient food to eat, and I did not want to have a concentration or collective of people to work.
And do you know whether people were able to stay at home after you had sent them home?
I could not know about that since I did not know about their home or their family, but I made an announcement that everyone should return home.
And everybody did. Is that correct?
Yes, they separated their ways to go to their home.
Mr. Witness, I would like to read an excerpt to you from an interview that the Minister of Social Affairs gave to an American journalist, Ing Terit. Mr. President, that is document E3/659, English ERN 001-82322, Khmer 00741117 and 118, French 00743047. Now this is what she said, and I would like to get your reaction. Yes, I was traveling in order to see the conditions of the people, and at the time when I came back in Phnom Penh, I reported to our leaders that there was something queer in some provinces. For example, in Battambang, I saw something very clear, that they make people, all people, going to the rice fields, very far from the village, and they have no home. And I saw they have no home and they are all ill. I reported to my leaders that. To the Prime Minister, that's quite queer. It is not normal. There is something wrong in this. And a bit further, at the time, I told my leader there is something wrong in that province because I know the directives of the Prime Minister. Not young, not old people, not pregnant women, not women feeding babies, and not small children. But I saw everybody there in the rice fields, in open air, nothing, and with the sun, very hot sun, I saw many people ill of diarrhea and malaria, so I reported it to him. End of quote. Mr. Witness, is that something that you can confirm as being the situation when you arrived in Battambang?
When I arrived in Battambang, I did not go to every place. From Thmako to Mongkolbaray route, I saw people working in the rice field. And they worked in groups, as I indicated earlier, and they did not live in proper houses, but they lived in shelter.
I understand that you didn't go everywhere, but do you, in general terms, agree with the observations that were made by Ingterit, that there was something wrong going on in the province?
Yes, I saw her report through that she spoke about the people working in the open field.
And are there other specific elements that you agree to in Ingterit's statement or interview?
I did not catch your full question. What points are you talking about?
Well, for instance, her observation that things were wrong in the province because what she saw was in violation of the directives of the Prime Minister. She means Pol Pot. Did you observe that the situation was contrary to the guidelines on working conditions, etc.?
The activities were like what she described, and that's what I saw too, because people did not live in a proper home, and that would be violating the directive, and that the people were working too hard.
Now, in your answer 4 in your WRI, you also mentioned something in relation to the workload. So you didn't only send people back to their homes, but you also said, or you also talked about, quote unquote, lighten the workload for the people who were starving, end of quote. What did you do to lighten the workload? Which measures did you take?
In order to lighten the workload, it was my understanding that it would be better for them not to work in concentrated groups. It would be better for them to work individually at their villages.
Did you also take measures to diminish the hours of work per day?
When I arrived, I did not work on the reducing of the number of hours, and as I would like to remind you again, I was there for a very short period of time.
I understand. Do you know what the guidelines were for working, what the general directives were in terms of how many hours per day and how many days per month people were supposed to work?
ការបែងចែកពេលវេលា
Regarding the working hours or the schedule, it was unclear. That is from what I saw. People would rest at 11, but the starting time varied.
Can you, let me rephrase, was the directive on working hours 8 hours a day and 15 minutes break for every hour and a long lunchtime as well?
At the time, the working hours varied, but as I said, they would rest at 11 and they would resume working at 1 or 2 o'clock. But there was no proper working hours schedule which was pronounced.
That's clear. Thank you, Mr. Witness. We spoke about you trying to solve the food situation, trying to lighten the workload of people who had been overworked. Do you know whether there were also other tasks of Southwest Zone cadres to do? Were there also investigations going on? Do you know whether there was monitoring going on? What do you know about any other measures that were taken by the Southwest Zone cadres in the Northwest Zone?
Cadres are people who works there. They came in stages, and I was the last group who came. And I only knew what I did, and I was not aware of what they had done previously.
Do you know whether there were also investigations being done into the unlawful killing of people in the Northwest Zone?
No, I was not aware of that.
Did you know anything about cadres who were not coming from the Southwest Zone, but who were sent directly by Pol Pot to the Northwest Zone to investigate the killings of Kampuchea Krom people by Runim?
No, I was not aware of that. I did not know anything about this when I arrived.
The other cadres who were not from the Northwest Zone, were they only Southwest Zone cadres that you saw, or were there also other cadres coming to investigate matters in the Northwest Zone?
I did not know about that. I only knew those people who came with my group. Even the three of us who came from the Southwest, I did not know them all.
I understand. I think my final question, Mr. Witness, do you know whether one of the most important reasons that Runim was arrested, Runim, the leader of the Northwest Zone, was because he was involved in killing of Kampuchea Krom people?
Any matters to do with Rohingya, I was not aware of it. I only knew I was the last group who was sent there, and I did not know who had worked there before I arrived.
Mr. Mr. President, could I just ask for a reference of what counsel's basis is for his question that Ru Nim is the one who killed the Khmer Krom?
Yes. It's evidence that's not admitted into evidence. It's ERN.
Sorry, then we can stop here. If it's evidence that's not admitted, you can't use it and you know it.
I was just answering the question. It's evidence coming from the interviews that Robert Lemkin took and that the Chamber refuses to admit.
If I could just make a comment on that. What counsel's talking about, perhaps I'll do it with the witness. That's okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
Mr. Witness, you arrived in Battambang on the 1st of January 1978. However, Ru Nim wasn't arrested until May, end of May, beginning of June 78. Did you hear anything or did you observe anything in relation to the arrest of Ru Nim, the chief of the Northwest Zone?
Councillor Copper, you may resume. Let's hope that you can finish your questioning before lunchtime.
Yes, Mr. President, it was actually my last question. Mr. Witness, you arrived in Battambang on the 1st of January 1978. You were very specific about that. Runim wasn't arrested until 5 months later. Did you hear anything about his arrest? Did you observe anything? Did you hear anything from cadres about his arrest?
No, I did not, because when I arrived, I did not ask these kinds of questions. It was not my personal matter, and I only did what I was instructed to.
Thank you very much, Mr. Witness. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. And I'd like now to hand the floor to the co-prosecutors to put questions to the witness, and probably we can go for another 15 minutes.
Okay. Sir, you mentioned you were from the third wave of Southwest cadres sent to the Northwest. Did you know Ye Rim sent to Bakan district?
I do not know Yedam. I do not know which one.
Well, did you hear about the killing of Khmer Krom in about August 1978 in Bakan?
I do not really get your question. Could you repeat it?
Yes. Did you hear about the killing of Khmer Krom in about August of 1978?
The similar things should apply to the prosecution. Please give us the reference.
I will give the reference after the break. I have. Did you hear about the killing of Khmer Krom in Bakan district, Mr. Witness? Council knows this. That fact is part of a video.
I was not aware about that.
Thank you. Sir, in your WRI, your interview, you mentioned that you were a teacher and that because of that you had to be vigilant during the Khmer Rouge regime. Can you explain what you meant?
I had to do what I was assigned to do. That was the thing that I was afraid at the time. I was afraid that I would be accused of opposing them. That's why I was to be careful.
Let me read your answer and just have you clarify it. In answer 24, you said during the Khmer Rouge regime, I had to be vigilant because I used to be a teacher. My 3 uncles, 2 siblings, and 7 cousins died during the Khmer Rouge regime. Sir, why was the fact that you were a teacher, why did you mention that in explaining you had to be vigilant? Did that make you suspect, the fact that you were a teacher?
I was afraid that they suspected me. My cousins did not die after 1975. They died in the period of Lon Nol when they were soldiers. They died because they were soldiers engaging the war against Lon Nol.
So let me briefly, before I ask you questions about your time in the Northwest, let me briefly go over your time there, make sure we understand it. You said you left the Southwest on the 31st of December and arrived the 1st of January, 1978. You said you then, excuse me, you said you spent about 10 days in Duantir and then were sent to Tamar Cole. Is that correct?
បាទខ្ញុំត្រូវបាទ
That is correct.
And you stayed in Tamar Cole, which would have been, you would have arrived in the middle of January. You stayed there until just before the Vietnamese arrived, when you were transferred to, I think it was Mongkol Bori. Is that correct?
ខ្ញុំនៅថ្មគោលមិន
I cannot recall how long I was at Mongol. I was not there. I was there not long. I had to disseminate food and made the announcement for those who were in the mobile units that they needed to go back home. Then I was reassigned to Mongol Borai.
So just so we understand the timing, you were assigned to Mongkol Borai just before the Vietnamese arrived, which would have been December of 78. Is that correct?
To my recollection, the Vietnamese approached the frontier already, but they did not go deep into the territory of Cambodia. The situation was chaotic. Was chaotic already when I arrived at Mongkol Borai.
So that we understand it a little better, how much time did you spend in Mongkol Borai before having to flee the Vietnamese?
I cannot remember it. 2 or 3 months. I did not record it. I was there for a brief moment. The situation at the border became intensified already.
Okay, thank you. When you arrived in the Northwest Zone, was Tam Mok the head of the zone?
He may have been the secretary.
Did you report to Tam Mok directly or through someone else?
I had my direct superior, Tajai. He went with me. We were assigned to the location on the same occasion. I would report directly to Tajai. He was on mobile. He did not stay put in one place.
And did Ta Chai report to Tam Mok, to your knowledge?
Yes, the reports would go through hierarchical order.
When you were in Tamar Cole, you said you were in the Commerce Office of the Sector 3. Who did you report to?
I was with Tajai. Tajai was with me. If there was things happening, I asked for his opinion.
Who was the sector secretary?
No one was appointed at the time, but there was no official announcement who was the sector secretary. But Tajai was there to be in charge of the sector.
How about Ta Tom? Wasn't he the sector secretary in Sector 3 when you arrived?
The post was vacant. I did not see people in the Commerce office.
So you did hear of Ta Tom, the sector secretary. Is that correct?
I heard of his name later. I asked others who was the chief or secretary of the sector, and I was told that it was Tatom. I never saw his face, and I did not know when he disappeared. I did ask the question who the sector secretary was, and I was told it was Tatom. I did not see his face. I did not know where he was gone at the time.
Well, sir, we have an entry on several documents from S21, and on the OCIJ list, Mr. President, Your Honors, number 6857. In these documents, there's a list of a person with the alias Tom, real name Pok Tom or Pok Sari, Secretary of Sector 3. And these documents show he entered S21 between 25 June 78 and 30 June 78, 1978. So, sir, did you ever meet Ta Tom before he was taken to S21 in June 1978?
I do not know this individual. I never saw his face.
You talked about rice in a warehouse in the center of the town, the center of the market for Tamakol. Is that correct? That's where you saw it?
I told the court already about that issue.
So, sir, was the rice visible as soon as you entered the warehouse?
I went inside and had a look if the rice was there, so that I could disseminate rice for villagers and people.
Okay, please answer the question that I asked. And the question was, when you walked in the warehouse, could you see the rice? Or was it hidden in some way?
It was not hidden. It was visible. And some rice was not in good quality. The rice was not hidden in some places. Some could not be used because it was stored for a long time.
So, sir, you've told us that you arrived in the Northwest Zone in January and in Tool. Excuse me, Tool Kiev in January, and you didn't leave until the end of the year, a couple months before the end of the year. Did you collect rice? How was the rice that was farmed in your area collected or distributed?
They had not yet harvested or collected rice when I was there. The rice was at different places, and they did not yet send and collect the rice.
Can you tell us, when you were in the Northwest Zone, was rice exported or was it sent to another country or to Phnom Penh?
I did not witness that. I did not witness any transportation to any other places.
So, sir, what do you know about the amount of rice taken from the Northwest Zone and sent to the center or exported before you arrived in 1977 and 1976?
I was not aware of that.
Well, sir, there's a document E3/201. In Khmer, ERN is 00292-805. In French, 00612-166. And in English, 00419-513. It's a speech by Q Sampan where he said we have a good crop for 1977. We even have a surplus of grain for export. Do you know anything about rice being exported?
I was not aware of important and big tasks. I was lower in rank. I was in the low level.
There's another document, sir, E3/2059. In Khmer, the ERN is 000-88796. In French, 00623-416. And in English, 00583-647. And this lists the export statistics from various zones, January to September 1978. That would have been the time that you were in Tamar. And it indicates that from the Northwest Zone, rice and husk rice, 29,758.145 tons were exported. Were you under any instructions that you know of in the north from the center to send rice to the center for export?
When I arrived there, I did not see any activities of transports.
When you asked about, we're told that there were problems, that people were starving in the Northwest. Did anyone talk about the fact that rice was being taken from the Northwest and exported to earn money for the Khmer Rouge regime?
I object to this question. There are all kinds of argumentative points in this question. It's totally unclear where this is coming from. I mean, I know I've read about this in various books. These are all kinds of conclusions. However, one doesn't exclude the other possibility. You can still hide rice away from people and export at the same time.
Your Honor, the argument is being made by counsel. You should say that we submit for arguments. I asked a question the witness could answer yes or no. He indicated in his response to questions put to him by counsel that he had heard that there were problems in the Northwest and people didn't have enough food. I'm asking him if he heard this explanation. Your Honor, but let me move on in the interest of time and satisfy counsel by citing some sources for this. There's a book, sir, E3/1593 by Ben Kiernan, and at French, ERN 00639-160, English 011 00500196 and Khmer 00637-932, he wrote that many refugees and survivors in Cambodia report that rice was being shipped to China despite the widespread starvation in the country. And down a bit, but in 1976, Democratic Kampuchea officials claimed to have exported 100,000 tons of rice the previous year. That would be 1977, before you got to the Northwest, to rice deficit countries such as Yugoslavia, Madagascar, and Hong Kong. Did you ever hear about rice being taken from the Northwest for export while people were starving?
Mr. President, I object to this way of questioning. It has nothing to do anymore with asking the witness for evidence that he is aware of. It's making an argument done in a quite pathetic way, I have to say. And all top of this, quoting Keenan, who has just been totally dismissed by the Supreme Court chamber as someone we cannot use for evidence because he's irrelevant.
Your Honor, I won't respond to counsel's questions. Obviously, he's afraid of the answers of the witness, but may I get the witness's answers?
President, the objection is overruled. The question can be put. Witness, please respond to the question. Witness, I do not recall the question. I did not get it.
Well, I'll ask it again. Before I do, I'll give you some more evidence to respond to in regards to this issue. This is from, purportedly, an interview with the adopted son of Runim, E3/10665. It's not translated into French. The English ERN, 011-56820, and in Khmer, 011-68475. He said that the amount of, he said, it is not enough. This amount given to Angkor as a plan, it was gone, and the people ate porridge. There was not even rice husk to eat because they took the husky rice. So there was nothing to mill, so nothing to produce rice husk for people to eat. And then he said, they said 1 million tons. We said 50,000 tons because the harvest was not good. This was the plan. If we could have enough rice for them, they accused us of betrayal. They said like that. So, Mr. Witness, as a person who was working in the Commerce Office in one of the sectors of the Northwest Zone, I'm asking you again, did you receive instructions from the center about sending rice to the center or to Sihanoukville for export?
I was not aware of that. I was performing the tasks at the lower level, and I was not aware of the tasks performed by the upper level. There were big and important tasks which I was not aware of. Concerning the fact that I was at the Commerce Office, it was not the trading office selling and buying stuff. It was the place where to store stuff. I was not aware about transports. President, I thank you very much, Mr. Witness. It is now the lunch break time. We will take a lunch break from now until 1:30. And also this information is for the duty counsel. You may now you may now relax. The chamber now takes a lunch break from now until 1:30. Security personnel is instructed to bring Khieu Samphan back to the waiting room downstairs, and please return him into the courtroom before 1:30 in the afternoon. The court is now in recess for lunch break.